Imagine a morning just like any other. The sun still rises in the east. The sky looks perfectly normal. And life moves on, as it has for thousands of days before. But something is different. Something no one can see with the naked eye. Something deeper, larger, and more dangerous than any storm humanity has ever known. At a moment when the world still seems calm, Earth's axis, the thing that keeps all life in balance, shifts slightly. Not much, just a few degrees. A change so small no one notices it in that instant. But that tiny shift is the beginning of an entirely new chapter for the planet. At first, people only feel the weather becoming strange. A cold gust blowing through tropical trees. Birds suddenly changing their migration paths. A region in Europe unusually hot for no clear reason. Small things, scattered things, things no one believes are connected. But in the natural world, even the smallest change is enough to trigger a massive chain reaction. Just a few weeks later, Arctic ice melts so rapidly that satellites can clearly see giant sheets breaking apart and drifting into the ocean. The ocean currents, the arteries of Earth's climate system, begin to falter. Winds along the equator reverse direction. Warm currents stray from their usual paths. And then, the global climate system begins to crack. Skies over peaceful regions suddenly fill with storms far stronger than anything in recorded history. Cities that never knew tropical cyclones now sit in the center of them. Deserts dry for decades are suddenly drowned in torrential rain. Fertile lands scorch and split under relentless heat. In agriculture, a quiet catastrophe takes shape. Rice fields across Asia collapse under unexpected cold. Crops in Europe cannot survive the unusually long summer. Farms in the Americas turn into lifeless, cracking plains in a single season. Global food prices skyrocket to historic levels. Wealthy nations are forced to open strategic reserves just to keep markets from collapsing. Long lines form for basic goods in places that once took abundance for granted. And beneath the ocean, where change always spreads fastest, migrating fish swim into waters with no food. Coral reefs, weakened by heat, die in massive patches. A cornerstone of marine ecosystems collapses within months. When nature falls, humanity follows. In many regions, millions are suddenly forced to leave their homes. Long caravans of climate migrants stretch across deserts and highways. Nations close their borders, not out of cruelty, but because they simply cannot take in more. Major cities panic. Heat waves overload electrical grids. Water systems cannot keep up. Rolling blackouts become a necessity. In the natural world, the situation is even darker. Tropical forests, once the lungs of the planet, become charred fields of blackened tree stumps. Fertile valleys transform into white plains of unending snow. Animals from the largest mammals to the smallest insects go extinct in waves. All of this from a tiny shift in Earth's axis. Pause for a moment. That tightness in your chest, that sense of dread, is exactly what scientists want us to understand when they create hypothetical simulations of axis shift scenarios. Because everything you've just heard is not a prophecy, not a prediction, not something happening outside your window right now. It is only a scientific assumption, a what-if scenario built from climate data, computer models, and decades of research into Earth system dynamics. These studies have existed for years, published by organizations like NASA, NOAA, and the IPCC, to help humanity grasp how delicate our planet really is. But then, something the scientists never intended happened. These simulations, created purely for study, were cut, twisted, exaggerated, and turned into viral fear-mongering by certain corners of social media. They took what-if scenarios, hypothetical models that do not reflect reality, and repackaged them as warning signs, breaking news, NASA alerts, even though NASA never said such things. Numbers were stripped of context. Charts were recolored and misinterpreted. Scientific hypotheticals were turned into dangerous misinformation. So what is the truth? The truth is, there is no scientific data showing Earth's axis is suddenly shifting. No satellite reports any unusual movement. No scientific agency has issued warnings of an axis-related disaster. The idea of the axis tilting by several dozen centimeters appears in no NASA or ESA publication. Earth's axis does vary, that is true, but the variation is tiny, incredibly slow, and takes hundreds or even thousands of years to create meaningful effects. It cannot and has never shifted dramatically in just a few months, as sensational posts online have claimed. Recent extreme weather does have causes, but those causes are climate change, urban heat islands, polluted air, and atmospheric circulation changes, all supported by clear scientific evidence, none related to sudden axial tilt. Sometimes, what frightens people most is not the real disaster, but the misinformation disguised as truth. But science does not operate through fear. Science operates through data, through observation, through evidence. And the evidence today shows Earth is stable. The axis is not shifting unusually. No hidden catastrophe is quietly approaching. The frightening stories circulating online are misunderstandings or deliberate distortions of concepts that were meant to be educational. What we need is not panic over twisted what-if scenarios, but the clarity to see the world through knowledge, through evidence, and through science, instead of fear.
Stay curious. See you in the next story.